Hi, Gareth. Thanks for talking to us. You'll have seen the reports about Mason Greenwood and Phil Foden. Can you please tell us what happened?
Yes. So unfortunately, this morning it was brought to my attention that two boys have broken the COVID guidelines in terms of our secure bubble. And so we had to decide very quickly that they couldn't have any interaction with the team. The rest of the team wouldn't be able to travel to training. Given the procedures that we have to follow now, they'll have to travel back to England separately.
Is it correct that they had girls in their room? They invited girls into their hotel room within the team hotel?
Nothing has happened in the areas that we occupy in the hotel. We're still getting to the depths of all the information because, as I said, this was only brought to my attention a couple of hours before training, and as you've seen, we've had to train in between. So I'm still getting to grips with some of the detail. But what is clear is that there was a breach of the COVID guideline. We've spent, such a long time getting those measures in place, and the whole squad have really followed that to the letter. We've had 4 tests in the period we've been together. Our staff have done an incredible job of keeping that really secure and tight, which was so important both to get the games played, but also for the safety and security of our team and our staff. So in that respect, we have no alternative but to do what we're doing.
So they left the team hotel rather than inviting people into the team hotel. That's quite crucial for understanding the impact on the rest of the squad, I guess.
I'm not going into any more details, Rob, until I'm clear of everything. They've certainly not been, nobody from outside our party has been into the areas of the hotel that we're occupying.
Okay, thank you. Gareth, is there a conversation that you and your officials have to have with UEFA now about whether there's a question mark over whether the game itself can go ahead if 2 members of the squad have breached the COVID regulations?
Now, we're very clear that no other members of our party have been in contact with those 2 players, and that's why they couldn't go to breakfast this morning. They couldn't join us for training. So we're very clear that we've followed all the guidelines in that regard. It's a very serious situation, and we've treated it that way and have acted as quickly as we have been able to.
In terms of the 2 players themselves, you're saying they're going to have to go home and they can't be with the squad anymore. Will they possibly need to self-isolate for 14 days now when they get home? Because my understanding is that the elite athlete exemption for quarantine rules doesn't apply if you breach that bubble, if you like.
Yeah, I'm not able to answer that question, Rob. I don't know all the detail. I've spent the morning dealing with this, then helping the coaches to prepare training. We're preparing the team for the game tomorrow. We've had to make a quick decision on the situation with the boys. Then we've got to focus on the team. The 2 boys can't be with us now, so we've got to focus on the game tomorrow.
Gareth, these are 2 players at huge football clubs who've been involved in the latter stages of European competition, so they've become au fait with the strict COVID rules quite a lot in recent times and travelling abroad. The other side of the coin, of course, is that it's an 18-year-old lad and a 20-year-old lad on their first trip away with the senior squad. They are still very young. Does that provide any mitigating circumstances in your eyes?
I think at the moment, I'm trying to take a lot of information in. I think they've been naive. We've dealt with it appropriately. I think everything from there on, I recognise their age, but of course the whole world are dealing with this pandemic, and there's responsibility on every age group to make sure that they play their part in keeping each other safe and not spreading the virus. So we're certainly not underestimating how important it's been to try and keep that bubble as we have.
It's clearly damaged your impression of them? Does it damage their standing internationally and being selected for the team and the squad going forward?
I think all of those things are too early, Rob. Until I have all the information, until I'm totally aware of every situation, then I don't think I should be making those sorts of comments. I'm a father with young children. I know young adults rather. I know young people get things wrong. We're not excusing that in this instance, and we've got to assess everything else moving forward.
Two last ones, Gareth, if that's okay. I mean, this young England squad that you've put together has been praised to the hilt, quite rightly, for all of the hugely positive things they've done in the kind of wider society. I look at Raheem Sterling's strong voice on racism and Marcus Rashford's campaign for free school meals. And then you see two youngsters in Greenwood and Foden do this. Does that undermine the good work that the rest of the guys have been doing?
No, I think we have to treat every incident separately. These are two boys I don't know particularly well at the moment, so I can't speak in great depth. I've obviously got to try to speak with them later in the appropriate way. They've got responsibilities. They have apologised. But everything has happened so quickly that I'm obviously speaking to you as was pre-planned. The rest we've got to get to the bottom of all the facts.
Last one. In the space of a fortnight, Gareth, this has probably been a really tough time for you, probably the toughest time for you. I wonder whether in the time you've been England manager, one senior England player convicted of two very serious charges in Greece, aggravated assault and attempted bribery of a police officer. And now two young England stars have breached the FA's etiquette and behaviour rules and the UEFA COVID rules. Are you going to have to be much stricter, do you think, and lay down the law with your squad now and say this sort of thing is not acceptable?
Well, the first thing is that this is a job like no other in terms of the things you have to deal with. All management roles are difficult. This is another level of the things you have to deal with. In terms of what's expected, I think the players that have been with us for a longer time know exactly what's expected and what we're prepared to go with as a coaching team in particular, but as a wider staff. And I think whenever people have stepped across that line when they've been with us, we've dealt with it appropriately. We can't be responsible for things that people do when they're not with us. That's their responsibility, and at that time, they're clubs. So, people will have a view on that, I'm sure. But I think we've been firm when we've needed to be.
Thanks, Gareth.
Thanks, Rob. Next, we'll go to Faker Others from TalkSport.
Hi, Gareth. How personally frustrated are you that, again, the spotlight has turned to something that's happened off the field as you're preparing your squad for on-the-field matters?
I'm hardened to it, really, Faye. I'm totally focused on preparing the team for the game. I have to make decisions around that all the time. As a football manager, you're always dealing with situations that are outside your control and things that have the potential to distract the team from the game. But we've got a game that we want to go and win tomorrow night. And amidst everything else, I've got to make sure the main focus is on the players that are going to be here and that they're prepared properly for the game.
You said that you'd spoken to both Mason Greenwood and Phil Foden, and they apologised. What else did they say to you?
Private conversations will remain private, and I haven't had the chance to speak to them at great length because the timing of everything leading towards breakfast, leading towards training, everything needed to be happening very quickly. So it was as much as anything to establish exactly whether they had put themselves in that situation, and then to inform them that they needed to stay separate from the rest of the team and that we would need to deal with things appropriately to get them back to England.
Thanks, Faye. Well, let's move on to others there. Of course, if you've got a question, as I said earlier, please raise your virtual hand. And of course, if you've got any friends in the Danish media, please feel free to ask a question as well. Waiting for any more hands. Anybody else got a question? John Murray from BBC 5 Live.
Gareth, what was your reaction when you heard about this? Were you angry?
Sorry, John, I lost you there for a second.
Hopefully you've got me now. What was your reaction when you heard this? Were you angry?
My reaction whenever a situation like this happens, John, is to make sure how do we establish the best route forward and the best decisions, nothing else.
Thanks, John.
And
next, we'll go to Jack Pitbrook from The Athletic.
Oh, go on.
I think John might have been coming back there, Andy.
I was just going to say, Gareth, and how would you describe their demeanour, the two players?
I'm not prepared to go into any of that detail, really. I think when I speak with the players individually, that's always between me and them. So I understand the question completely, and they absolutely understand their responsibilities, and they've apologised. But everything else is should remain in-house.
Thanks, John. Next, Jack Pitbrook from The Athletic.
Hi, Gareth. Mason spoke really well with us the other day about how he understands that he has to be a role model now because of the prominence of his position. How much of a letdown is it then, the events of yesterday or the last few days?
Yeah, I think unfortunately for the two boys, they're going to find themselves in a situation because of where we are across the globe with the pandemic, where there's going to be a lot of judgment of them from afar. So it's not for me to make that more difficult for them. They understand their responsibilities. They understand that they've got this wrong, and now we've got to, separate them from the squad. And our job is to get on with the game.
Thanks, Jack. Okay, I think we're clear. Gareth at length has addressed that particular topic, so we'll move on to some questions related to tomorrow night's game, starting with Rob Dorset from Sky Sports News.
Gareth, let's move it on, shall we? You've now only got 19 outfield players, I guess, without those two guys involved. And a lot of those 19, we've talked a lot over the last few days, are perhaps not as fit as they usually might be, or you've got to assess since they played in the first game. How big a problem is that for you? How much have you got to address your resources issues now?
We're actually really pleased with the condition of the players following the Iceland game. I think it was a game that was played in, predominantly one half of the pitch, so the physical demands were a lot lower than matches sometimes can be. And so there are, of course, there have been players in our squad short of training minutes and match minutes, but in actual fact, everybody has reported well, both before and after training.
And can I just follow that up with one more about the formation? You've told us ahead of the last game that you might be looking to possibly experiment. And we know you used 3 centre-backs in the World Cup to great effect. I don't expect you to tell me your formation, but with the players you've got in the squad, that's a possibility. What have you been thinking about those possibilities?
We're thinking about, we've tried things in training across the week with a long-term view on different possibilities for us as a team. Whether it's the right thing for tomorrow night to be able to win the game, we've got to think that through. But it's no secret because everything in this camp seems to have got out. So we have tried 3 at the back earlier in the week, but we'll make a decision on that tomorrow.
Okay, we'll take one more from Rob.
Sorry. How big a challenge did Denmark pose? I mean, look, Iceland were very rigid and very difficult to deal with, but Denmark, on paper, and certainly in terms of FIFA rankings, would be a stiffer challenge. Is that fair to assume?
Yeah, I think it will be a very different style of game. Denmark were very good against Belgium. I thought they were very unlucky to lose the game. They pressed with intensity. They've got good quality players with the ball. So we'll have a different sort of test defensively. and we'll come up against some very good defenders as well. But there will be a little bit more space because of the way Denmark play. Iceland obviously were a very low block. A sensible approach for the way that they needed to play the game. But Denmark will come at us a little bit more, and there will be a little bit more space for our attacking players.
Okay, thanks everybody for joining us. As ever, the recording of this interview and also that Eric Dyer interview I referred to earlier is available for circulation on request. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gareth.